try out, Patrick. Oh, cool. I think we're at the hangout zone for 5 minutes or so. I think whilst everyone sort of joins in. There you go. Feel free to absolutely spam me on the text zone over here. Unfortunately, it was a bit difficult to get all the videos to everyone because there was a few people, like too many people to kind of have video boxes. So we've just got a chat box. So if you send messages through on there, I'll be able to, it pops up and I'll be able to read it and respond to you in real time. So it'll look like I'm talking to myself, but we're actually all having one big conversation. So I'll give it a minute or two. I think there's a few more people coming. How's your day going, everyone? Is there any exciting stories you can pop through before we start? No, just a bit of a mundane today. Oh, just uni. Oh, yeah. Been giving my pup honey. Oh.
Oh no.
Is he? Oh, he's not got a cold. Yeah. That's not very good.
Raised a hand. Oh yeah, people can raise their hands, and then we have a little button where we can allow people to talk. So, do you have a question you want to ask?
Cool. Maybe we should get started in a sec then. Actually, what time is it? 4:08. Yeah, I think it's well and truly we start then. Is that all good?
Yeah, just before we kick off with everything, I've just got a little bit to say, and I've got my beautiful slideshow here. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Awesome. So thanks everyone for coming along, and anyone who's watching us on Facebook as well. This is Music for Food Lovers with Jack Davies, and we just want to start with an acknowledgement of country and acknowledge the ownership of this Noongar Budja that we're on, and we just want to express some gratitude for the custodianship of the people from the Whadjuk Nation who have taken care of this land for so many years. You can also check out some more events. We're almost at the end of the festival, but there's still a little bit more happening today and tomorrow. And this is just some housekeeping. If you need any help, chuck us an email or just on the chat box is the fastest way, really. Yeah, enjoy. I'm gonna stop sharing now and I'm gonna disappear a bit and you can kick off the chat.
Cool. All right. Here we go. Just figure out how to get my screen sorted out. All right. Oh, no, I keep clicking things and it's, oh no, now I've lost all the chat boxes. All right. I got it back. How are we going, everyone? I already asked that, but I've asked you it again because it's a good question. Can I get one more answer to how we're going? I've got a yes and a yep and a yep. So I'm going to take that as positive and everyone's going great. Very chill. Happy face. Oh, that's cool. And I'm going well as well. And so it looks like we're all having a nice time already and we've not even started yet. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about songwriting, what it means, how to do it, why to do it, and yeah, all sorts of things. I want to make it clear at the start of this that there's really there's no way you can formulate or break something like writing or really any art form down into a series of steps that accurately kind of represents the complexity and the beauty of it. So I'm not going to try to do that so much as I'm just going to try and talk about a few things to do with form and structure and the more physical side of songs, and then a few things to do with the process and the more journalistic, telling your own stories side of writing, and what that means to me. And then we'll close off and we'll take some suggestions and we'll come up with a little tune ourselves to kind of put some of the things we talked about into practice. yeah, so by the end of it, if we have time, I actually got a brand new microphone the other day, so we can try it out. We can, whatever song we end up writing together, we can record a little doodle on my laptop, and I'll send it to everyone. And we've got a little tune out of this. Usually, I would love if every time I've done a workshop in the past, I've got everyone to bring instruments and percussion and whatnot. So it's a little bit strange to just be sitting by myself. But, you know, that's the way the world is at the moment. So I'm really glad that you, all of you lot, were accommodating enough to still want to take part in something that you can't jam along to so physically. But I guess we can all vibe together online, which is nice. Yeah, anyway, I'll start from the start now. My first bit I want to talk about is just introducing myself and a little bit about who I am, and what I do and what I do with songwriting and stuff. So firstly, my name is Jack. I guess that's in the event, so that's me repeating the event again. But yeah, my name's Jack. I play in a band called Jack Davies and the Bush Jooks, and I also play a lot of solo stuff, and I busk a lot too, and I do a lot of other writing, but I don't really share that around as much. Like, I really like writing a lot of poetry. I've tried to write longer stuff, but I haven't really got too much into short stories or anything. But I would really love to someday. But been doing a fair bit of poetry and things as well, which I kind of find just as enjoyable as songwriting. But for me, the songs have kind of been the thing that I've been able to share with other people, which is why it's kind of been the focus, I think. Yeah, so that's who I am. That's what I do. I think something that's been really interesting, busking, like, because the past couple of years I've made most of my income just by busking around Fremantle and a few farmers markets and stuff, as well as doing a few little private occasions and things, is that the way people interact with different sorts of songs, and that's something you begin to recognize through performing that you don't really get when you're just playing by yourself. That's and that's something I've really thought about a lot in the past couple of years, the way songs are a way of connecting with other people, and, you know, different people connect with you in different ways with different songs, but I'll talk about that a lot in more detail later on. That's kind of where a lot of my thinking comes from, is that sort of busking background and that basic just, you know, singing stories and watching people kind of laugh or you know, think something's funny about them, which is kind of why I love the whole food thing. But yeah, sorry, I lost my notes here. And then, yeah, cool. And so that's one of the things I love about writing, is the way we can kind of connect with everyone, you know, and especially when we're writing about things that are relevant to the place we are, and, you know, the land we're on, the country, you know, and yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a few of my favorite songs as well, and a few of my favorite writers as well, before we start looking into the more structural stuff of the song. By the way, if you just got random comments or something wildly erupts in your brain that you just need to let out, or you just want to make a bit of noise, throw a comment in the chat, because that gives me something to feed off, because I get a bit awkward when I just talk on and on and on. I kind of ramble into probably something that goes wildly astray from what I originally planned. So by yelling things at me, you'll keep me on track, so the more messages the better. But anyway, yeah, a couple of my favorite songs. Yeah, I wanted to start off by playing a song or two that I've been really enjoying recently, and kind of talk about why I enjoy that and what it means to me. I was going to talk about some other songwriters I like, but I think I might just waste time if I do that. So I'm going to play a song that probably one of my favorite songs that I've been lucky enough to play for other people. One of my own songs. And I'll play that quickly and then talk a little bit about it, and then we'll get into the more structural stuff. But This one's quite a simple song. It's what would be called a ballad, which just means like story song. I hope that rain's not too loud for everyone. But yeah, I started off just by playing this song as a little bit of an introduction to the sort of style of writing that I really enjoy. This one's called Rosemary Mushrooms. I'm just going to play it and get my brain a bit clearer. Well, it's 3 o'clock on a Saturday, stumbling through the city, feeling drunk from all the car fumes and chain smoking ciggies. We are searching for something, not quite sure what it is. We just roll around in the car park, getting high, and then you kiss me on the cheek and run away. In a rusty alleyway, I sit here and look around. You come back and sit down, and we stumble through the city to rather late at night, getting HJs, getting drunk, trying not to get in fights. So we caught the train at Frio at 1:30 a.m. Kebab shops were all closed, but 7-Eleven sold bread. So we head on down to South Beach, through swim through the feed. Begin your backpack, find a can, baked beans, and we tear into the tin. Under the intimacy of stars, and I saw you, saw my darling, heard the sounds of passing cars, melt into a sweet cacophony, the ocean and my breath. And in that beautiful silence, we got up and left, so I finished all the bread, and scraped up the beans, and I walked on my own to my house down the street, and I kicked off my shoes as I hopped in a bed, and I thought about you and the things that you said. And I slept for a very long time, till my back grew sore and my bed grew tight, and I woke in a sweat, and I called out your name, and I wonder if you're somewhere doing the same, or am I just a self-deprecating, obsessive piece of shit? I apologize for my language, sometimes I'm a bit over the top in the morning. When I get out of bed, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm all out of bread. And after a long day, I come home once again. I throw down my bag and I grab out the bread that I bought at the markets where I played today. I was begging for money, or for someone to stay for a while and just listen to the words of my songs. Tell me I'm worthwhile, that my existence isn't wrong. Make me feel useful, make me glad to be alive. I guess it's no wonder I sing all the time, so I put the bread in the toaster, then I turn on the stove. I cook rosemary mushrooms with 2 garlic cloves. I get out a couple of plates, a couple knives and forks too. I was eating alone, but I was cooking for 2, just in case that you happened to pop on by. If I had food ready, perhaps you'd stay a while. But I ate and I ate, whilst your meal sat there, getting cold, getting sad. And I sat and I stared and I cleaned up the kitchen, your plate away, covered it all up in glad wrap, just in case that you decide to come over later for dessert and red wine. You could take your meal home, eat it another time, but I realize you are not coming I never even invited you. It's probably good you didn't. I probably would have just frightened you. I mean, how can I love somebody if I'm frightened of myself? I need to take some time off and think of my health. I need to go see the dentist and get my teeth fixed. Need to speak to a psychiatrist, get them to pull all the sticks out from my eyes and my ears, all the bugs in my brain. I need to take some time off to feel like myself again. So that's the Rosemary Mushroom song. That was my introduction. I'm a little bit nervous in my intro actually. My intro in terms of what I was talking about. I think perhaps I was speaking far too quickly out of fear of being boring. But yeah, one point I want to make quickly about that song. I'm trying to stick to the structure, and I think that's making it harder. So I'm just going to ramble in whatever direction I come up with. But one thing immediately I want to say. It's kind of difficult sometimes to talk about songs and then reference your own ones because I don't want to sound, there's that line between, I wouldn't usually speak about, purely because it's a songwriting workshop, when I speak about things I like about the song. And one thing I want to point out about that, like, that is probably one of my favorite songs that I get to play. But the interesting thing that I always think about is it's got no chorus. It's got no real, it's only got 4 chords, so it's quite a boring chord progression. And it's really just 1 or 2 big long, sorry, I just got a text. It's actually just, it's 3 really long verses, and that's the whole song, which I guess you get some songs that are like that. Can't think of too many, but, the point being, a lot of people have this idea in their head about what a song should be, and like having a chorus, for example, or even a refrain, which is a bit less common, but still like a thing that you might expect, or having a bridge, or having some up and down. There's not really any rule book, and I think that song helped me kind of realize that was because you can write a song that kind of doesn't have a chorus or anything, and you can kind of, but it still kind of does in a way, but it's not just like here's the chorus, and it can work without that. You can kind of pretty much do it whatever you want, whatever feels the most natural and real kind of representation of what you're trying to express, I think. And yeah, so that was my thing for myself, to be like, it doesn't have to have that kind of specific form. Form is more of like a tool that you use, not something that you try to capture or like follow. So, but ironically, the next thing I want to talk about is form. So my subheading was, what is a song? And as much as I'm trying to say there is no definition of what a song is, there's more so a definition of what a song can be. And there are a few terms and a few concepts which are really handy to know, and I'm sure a few of you probably know them already. But I'm just going to go over them quickly, just because if you're talking to people about songs, or if you even just thinking about them, knowing the language can really help you think about it sometimes. So the first thing, I've said it a lot already, is form. And what do we mean by form? So what I mean by form is, you have the beginning, you have the middle, you have the end, and you have everything in between, and you have how that all fits together. And so, or what's in the middle. So we have verses. Verses are basically the long bits of lyrics that aren't repetitive. The Q&A panel. Where's the Q&A panel? Sorry, I'm trapped to myself, but.
Okay, it's down the bottom. Kind of on the right.
I was wondering. Okay. Cool. Okay, cool. All right, awesome. That's great. That helps. If you have any longer questions, send them through to the Q&A. I didn't realize it was both. That's interesting. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, we have verses. That's probably the main thing that is in every song, or every song with lyrics. A verse is just, it's you see it in poems. You see it everywhere. It's just speech, really, dialogue or words or whatever you want to use. It's just the words. And then obviously you have the chorus, and the chorus can just be the words, but it's repeated. The chorus just means it's like the highlight of the song. It's repeated pretty much. And I would never quote me on these definitions because I don't think they would stand up in any sort of definition book. But this is my kind of idea of what they are and what I think they are, at least, and how I kind of think of them. And then another concept that's kind of similar to a chorus, which is something you see a lot in folk music and a lot of other music as well, but that kind of roots music seems to use it a lot, mainly because of its connection to more older forms, poems and things, is refrains, because that's a poetry term. But that basically just means it's one line, or it can be 2 lines. It can actually probably be 3 lines, but more than that, you may be pushing it. But it's basically just the end of a verse that repeats itself. So if I have a verse that went, went to the shops, bought some milk, went back home, laid in my bed, and then I went to sleep. That last line, if I did another verse, I woke up, I went to the shops, and then I came back home, and I went to the backyard and played with the dog, and then I went to sleep. So that last line there that I repeated, that's what we'd call a refrain. And that's something I really like. I think it avoids the kind of corniness of a chorus, but allows you to kind of keep the verses becoming relevant to one idea. And then we have bridges. Bridges are quite literally what they sound like. They're a bridge between 2 different parts. So usually they're used before a chorus or after a chorus. So you might have a song, it's like you're singing your verse, singing your trebles, la da da la da 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 da, and then you go, and this is your little bridge. And then your chorus might be like, please catch me, I don't wanna go. Trampoline, so that in between part, that's what we call a bridge. And those are kind of the main things that I think about in terms of the form of a song. But at the same time, those are kind of things that I think about almost as much to avoid as I do think about to use. But they're helpful to know. But the most important part of form, which I think is way more important than thinking about any of those previous 4 things that I mentioned, the refrains, verses, choruses, or bridges, is just visualizing the slope, or visualizing the structure of the song in terms of the slope. You can kind of think about it in a 3D way, or you can think about it in a 2D way. Everyone's brain works differently, but I feel like there's 2 kind of ways I always think about the form. If you imagine you have the start and the finish of a song, right? That's kind of like a movie. Like if you watch a movie, generally it's kind of like it starts off and it builds up, gets bigger, and then it kind of peaks, and then it slowly glides back down. That's kind of the regular thing of like a movie, like a tradition, like a normal kind of pop contemporary movie. It's what you'd kind of consider it to be. And it's the same with a lot of pop songs, and it kind of has that, except with pop songs, it's kind of the chorus is kind of that peak, so it'll go up, verse, and then chorus, and then back down the verse, and then chorus, and back down the verse, and then one big chorus, and it might end on the chorus or something, or it might come back down and end on like a quieter note. And then you get some songs, for example, I try to reference some of my own songs because it makes more sense to me, because I've already thought about the structure of these songs quite a lot from writing them. So for example, like the Vegemite sandwich song, that one is very much if we were to draw that. Actually, I think I've got a tool here, which I can do. I've never tried this before, but I'm gonna give it a go. Oh wait, sorry, that's not what I wanted. That was my notes. Oh, cool. Can you see my whiteboard? Oh wait, no one can speak. Hey, it's just silence. See, yeah, I always get, yeah, I've used Zoom before, but I've never used it when there's been no talking, so it's a bit daunting. But anyway, so I'm going to use this as my kind of way of talking about the linear sort of structure of the song. So here we have the start and we have the finish. And this is a kind of very boring structure of a song that I've just written out. I don't know, maybe at like 2 minutes 50, you got something interesting mildly, but it doesn't last for long and it's pretty boring again. If we had a song like, for example, the Vegemite sandwich song, I feel like that might be one. If you've heard that one, that, for example, let me just draw the way I kind of think of that song. Kind of starts, and then it goes up, and it slowly builds, and it slowly builds. You get builds and builds and builds, and it comes straight back down. And it kind of comes up a little bit, and then bam. And that's kind of how I think of that song. So I'm not sure if that's something you maybe thought about before when you're writing stuff, but that's kind of the way I always visualize things. Like, and then that's a pretty common thing. That there's a lot of songs that have that kind of slow build. You know, like for example, How to Make Gravy. You know, let me draw How to Make Gravy real quick. It went off the scale. You know, that's because that song's just, you know, you can't really put a top part of that. It just infinitely, it's still going up as we speak. But yeah, anyway, let me return back to the chat now. I've lost my chat box. Oh, there we go. But yeah, the best song. We did this sort of plotting for storylines and literature. Yeah, it's great. It's kind of like a, it's kind of, yeah, it's very, yeah, it crosses into a lot of different things. It's kind of way of thinking about it. Yeah, and every time I share my screen, it messes with everything. All right. Yeah, so that's one thing that, that's probably the biggest thing I think about in terms of this form of a song, is where it's going and what journey it's kind of taken to get there. And yeah, and that's when you have, you know, when you have pop music, you kind of have like that sort of drop, like that's really enjoyable when you have something that builds up, you know, and then like drops and then go bam, you know, that's something everyone loves, whether you pretend to hate it or not. And it's just a part of, it's something in human nature that people enjoy. Like you can be different genres, but all genres kind of have these similar things to it, eventually, like, to some extent. Yeah, anyhow, that's enough of that for now. I'll come back to all these things, but I'm just kind of getting through it. I was going to talk a little bit about melody now as well, which is another term that's really important to think about, or to know, because if you don't know, well, I mean, you can't really have a song without melody. Although I was listening to a song the other day that my friend showed me, and it was the first song I've ever heard where this singer sung in monotone the entire time, which is rather interesting. I wouldn't say I recommend it, but I mean, even that technically is a melody. I've got a question here that says, do you tend to work out chords and melody first? And that's an interesting thing. I talk about that now because I wanted to bring up melody. And really, melody is tied inextricably from chords. If we think about how we come up with melody, we come up with melody by taking the notes out of the chords and singing them. Generally, that's kind of the simplest way to do it, and that's why it sounds good. You know, we have a G chord, you know, C chord, and E minor chord, and an A minor chord, and we pick one note from every chord and we sing it. That will sound like a melody. You know, that is B, and then we play a C and we get a C note. We play E minor, we get a E note. We play an A, and and we got a C note. So we're going like da, 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 and then we add words to it, and he goes, I wish to find you. So yeah, so that basically, no, I haven't answered the question at all, really, and I know I haven't. But what I was trying to just say quickly there is that the melody comes out of the chords. So my answer would be, I usually come up with the chords first, and then think about melody. But really, it's inextricably, it's connected. Like as soon as you play a song, it just kind of comes to you. But I've never really had it where I've thought of a melody and then worked out the chords. Although I think maybe once or twice, but generally the chords and then the melody, because you kind of get the melody out of the chords. But I mean, at the same time, that's not a rule. Like whatever works for you. And yeah, I'll quickly answer the question as well. Please send through some more if you like. Done. How did I go about learning harmonica? I'll quickly do this one, a little interlude. I've got my harmonicas. They're on the kitchen bench. I could grab them if I want in a sec. But I started when I was about 15. About 15 or so. I was actually walking to my school one day. No, I was right. I was walking to school one day, and I had a guitar with me. I was just carrying it because I was bringing my guitar with me to play something. And some older guy, he just was like, "Hey," and basically there was this cafe near where I was walking, and he was like, "Do you play guitar?" And I said, "Yeah, I do play guitar." And I don't know, I was a bit like, "Who is this person?" He was like, "Would you come play at my cafe?" And he told me that he invites people there to busk and raises money for a charity called Solaris, which is a cancer foundation that his cafe and gym supports. And so he invited me along. He'd never heard me play before. He just saw me as like some kid, and he was like, "I'm sure that kid would, come love a place to busk." So I went in there, and I never busked before. And he set me up, and I just played for ages. And then since playing there, I just suddenly got this craving to be like, I kind of want another instrument to play over the top of this whilst I'm singing, because I was just playing fully acoustic, no amp or anything. So it was a bit like, it felt a bit boring just strumming all the time because I didn't know how to fingerpick at that point. So I got a harmonica and I just tooted around. I didn't know how to play it at all. I just kind of like listened to it, and you worked out. You get keys on harmonica. So if you have a key in G, you just play. You play in G, and just kind of worked it out, and then just did that for a couple of years. And then over a few years of playing it, you kind of start to figure out how to do it. And I did a couple of YouTube tutorials on how to hold your mouth to do the individual notes, but I didn't really like force myself to learn it at any point. I just kind of played it for a long time busking, and then so. And if anything, I'd like to make the point that I think that's kind of the great essence of a lot of this stuff. It's not about like sitting down and forcing yourself to do something. It's really about just enjoying something and finding a reason behind it and a purpose for it. And once you have that purpose or reason for why you want to do it, just doing it is the way to learn it, and doing it and enjoying it. And especially doing things in front of other people, like singing or playing harmonica in front of other people is a huge thing, because you realize what works and what doesn't work, and you pretty quickly try your very hardest to not do the things that don't work, because it's kind of embarrassing, sometimes. So I just kind of worked it out. It's one of those instruments you can just toot along, and it always sounds all right as long as you're in the right key. So I hope that answers your question. Feel free to send any more questions if you like. I quite like answering questions. I feel like it takes a little of the pressure off. Anyhow, so we talked a little bit about melody. So melody is something that comes out of the chords. So every chord is made up of all these different notes. We have like the G chord is made up of like, that's all the notes in a G major 7. So all the notes in that chord is just. And when we're singing a melody, we're kind of picking out notes from every chord that we're singing. And we don't have to sit there and work out what notes are in every chord before we sing. as a human being, we have this amazing ability to kind of just almost like intuitively feel what sort of notes want to go in the right place. And the reason, there's you could talk about the science of why that sounds good, but it's just something that is in your brain and is intuitive, and as you sing, it'll just sound good. But you pick up little melodies from other songs. I remember most of the songs I wrote when I was a kid were like definitely all rip-offs of other songs, and they probably still are, but you get more sneaky at how to get, no, I'm joking, but melody is just, it's just notes out of the chords. And then, but that's a term to think of, because when you're writing a song, you kind of got to remember the melody. And I'll talk about that term later on. Actually, this is a really good question from Patrick. Are there also ways to do melodies from notes that aren't in the chord you're playing, like for dissonance? So that's a great question. And for anyone who doesn't know, dissonance is basically just two notes that kind of not so much clash, but they're, imagine a square going in a square hole, or a circle going in a triangle hole. Like, that's the difference between consonance and dissonance. So like a consonant chord would be like this, and a dissonant chord would be like that's a dissonant chord. This is a consonant chord. One's like smooth, the other was kind of jarry. And so yes, definitely. We don't always have to play the notes that are in the chord. The notes that we sing that are in the chord that we're playing, that's kind of the nice sounding parts of the melody. The dissonant parts of the melody are kind of, it builds up tension essentially. The second chord, it's a C minor major 13 over F sharp, I think, yeah. There you go, there's one for the chord charts. It's one I use a lot actually. But I don't know, that one just works because it's a bit of a random chord. But yeah, so we have this thing called dissonance and consonance. And I think the main thing about a melody is you have, it rises out of this really familiar, comfortable thing into this kind of place that's a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit you want to move somewhere. And that feeling of being somewhere slightly a little mysterious or a little bit uncomfortable or dissonant, and then resolving that to something nice, or resolving it to something that feels a little bit different. It kind of takes you on this emotional journey as a listener, and that's the way a melody kind of affects you emotionally, is by pulling you in and out of these states of consonance and dissonance. And that's probably the simplest way to put it. There's probably a lot of people who are much better at talking about that than I. But yeah, melody, there's really no rules. You can sing any sort of note you want, but if you sing it from within the chord you're playing, most of the time it's always going to be very consonant, really nice sounding, resolved thing. And then when you want to build up more tension, if you're moving away, or if you want to build up momentum to move into another chord, that's when you kind of pull away from those notes. But at the same time, then you have extensions, like, if you're playing like a major 7, or you're playing a major 9, or or a major 13, or a major 11, or so, which are still really consonant, really nice sounding chords, but they're kind of, they're a bit further apart from the regular, like 1 through 5. And yeah, but yeah, those sorts of melodies. There's you could spend years studying all the effects of these different note changes, but essentially you can play whatever note you want. The ones that sound good are the ones in the chord, so those are the ones you'll naturally gravitate to. But yeah, that's the sort of thing you just kind of figure out over time. And in terms of other ways to do it, like, I think just experimenting, really, like experimenting, jumping between notes, like usually singing a note outside of the chord and then moving to that chord, like I went down. So it kind of jumps early between those two notes. But yeah, it's a very, very personal thing that you kind of figure that out as you go. And then what do you find myself when influential when it comes to writing naturally? I'll refrain from saying a glass of wine and a state of being confident. There's actually something I wanted to say about that. I was going to say later on, but I might say it now. It's a really great thing my housemate said last night that I really appreciated. And it was talking about, we just talked briefly about one of the most important things, or one of the most important, difficult, but important roles of or just an artist in general, regardless of what medium you're using, like songs or painting or physical performance or anything, is learning to accept and appreciate your own work. And so being able to delay that own criticism of yourself when you're writing is really important. You can't, I mean, a lot of people still do, but I promise you it's a million times easier to write a song when you're willing to just say, hey, I think this is cool. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I'm just writing this for me. And you can take the time and the space to appreciate what you're doing. Not in a vain or, not in a, what's the word, a narcissistic way. It's more of a sign of respect for yourself, not immediately dismissing what you're doing. Because that's something I feel like I suffer a lot from, is like immediately writing something and then halfway through writing it I just go, oh no, this is terrible. I'm stupid for writing this, and then I stop, and then I do that 15 times in a row, and then I'm like 15 half-finished songs, and I listen back to them, I go, oh, these are great, and then every time I try and finish them, I get in this loop of, these aren't great, so that's something to really think about. So yeah, I'd say just taking the space to appreciate what you're doing and delaying that kind of expectation and judgment that you have for yourself. But yeah, anyway, let's get back to this. The last one I wanted to say was lyrics, and that's pretty, everyone knows that term already. And those are the kind of main terms that I talk about in terms of the terms we use when writing songs. So we have the form, and within the form that involves refrains, verses, choruses, bridges. We have the general slope of the song, the ups and downs. And then we have the melody, and then we have the lyrics. And those are the kind of main terms that I use when I'm thinking about the song in my head, in a purely physical sense, not in so much an artistic sense, more of a like analyzing how I can structure it to help the song work better. So we've got all these things, we've got the melody, we've got the structure, we've got all that. And that all makes sense, and that's all great. But then we kind of get to the point, it's like, well, how do I actually use any of that? How do I write a song? How do I come up with any of this stuff? Like we can say what a melody is, but then how do you come up with a melody without just copying someone else's? And that is a genuine difficult thing to kind of think about, but that should never get too hung up on that, because I think a lot of people spend more time worrying about how they're going to do something rather than trying to do it. So my short answer for that would be you just give it a crack, and the more you do it, you kind of figure it out. But there are some very specific things that I'm going to talk about that kind of help me when I write, and sort of how I keep track of things and the sort of process I use. Firstly, I'll just quickly, before I get into that, probably the question of how to write a song probably isn't answered by the things I'm about to talk about. So let's quickly talk about that. But it might be answered a bit better at the end, because I'm going to write a song with all of you lot. I wish we were all in a room together so we could all have our own instruments and jam and sing together, but today I'll just be taking all your suggestions off the web, and we'll kind of be webbing something together. That was a pun. But yeah, so writing a song, we just, we start with a chord and a melody and a word, and we just kind of sing what's on our mind. I could sit here and, if I'm thinking, I know, like, even if you only know 3 chords, like, an A minor chord, a D chord, like an F chord. Like, if that was the only chords you knew, you could sit there and go like, and you look around your room. One thing I always think about is my physical, what's around me. Like, for example, there's a computer screen in front of me. I think, this computer screen. That's the first word that came into my head, and I kind of listen to the chord and think what notes kind of I'm gravitating towards. I think, da, it's computer. There are people watching me sing. I wish that I had planned it. Yeah, anyway, so there. So basically, it can be absolutely anything. That there's no real science to how to start writing a song other than you just find a point and you start it. But we'll go through that later when we write a song all together. But I'm going to talk about the way we actually keep track of the ideas we have and turn those into more established songs. I assume a lot of you would have tried to write a song before, or maybe you haven't. That's totally okay. But if you have, who's actually, I'm going to throw some questions to you. Like, who's had a crack at writing some songs before? Sorry, I just closed the chat box. Yeah, awesome. Not important ones. Every song is important. Oh, and way too many half-finished songs. That's something I'm going to talk about at great length. That's my biggest problem as well. So no. Awesome. I'm glad to hear a lot of you write a song. Jack, I'm surprised you haven't. I know, Jack. You should try. I reckon you could write heaps of songs. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear you've tried writing a few songs before. So you're kind of familiar with how you kind of pick up the guitar and you play something. You might not like what it is. You might love what it is. You might hate it and then come around to it. You might love it and then start to hate it. You might write it and then feel stuck, or you might feel paralyzed by the fear of the fact that you're enjoying what you're writing. You might at any second write something that's not as good as what you've already written, and you paralyze so much so that you can't continue writing the song and you never finish it. And so now the song's completely worthless when realistically it'd be better off even if you did a terrible job finishing the second half. So there's a lot of different, once we've hit that initial point, it just branches off into a million different directions of all these different thought patterns we can go down and issues and successes we can have with it. There's a question here I've got some, Sadie, I'm going to answer quickly. And they said, I think when I try lyrics, I end up just venting with no melody, LMAO, it gets out of hand. Saying one thing, then explaining and justifying it and taking too long. How do you deal with the possibility of being misinterpreted? Well, that's a great question, actually. And I'll talk about that now. And I'm going to read that again quickly. I think this is the main part here, is that we'll end up saying one thing and then explaining and justifying it and taking too long. How do you deal with the possibility of it being misinterpreted? And I'm guessing by that you mean when you start off a song with one idea, the rest of the song ends up being yourself trying to explain that and not sound like you're saying something that you're not meaning to say. Yeah, okay. I understand. Yeah, that's a very very understandable thing to be feeling. I think the way, I can't really tell you exactly what to do, but the way I kind of think about that and deal with that generally is, I don't know if this sounds bad or not, but just trying to keep things vague, in terms of not saying like, such a difficult question to answer, but basically I try to keep things vague, and to some extent you want things to be able to be interpreted in different ways, because when no one can really pin down exactly what you mean, then no one can judge what you mean, because they don't really know what you mean. Only you know what you mean, and sometimes even you don't know what you mean, and everyone else thinks they know what you mean. You can see they're kind of laughing at them, going, "You don't know a thing about what I actually mean," or maybe it doesn't mean anything at all, and everyone's just been fooled, pranked by it. The question was, sometimes when I think of the lyrics, I end up just venting with no melody, gets out of hand, saying one thing, then explaining and justifying it and taking too long. How do you deal with the possibility of being misinterpreted? Yeah, Yeah. So yeah, similes and metaphors obviously are a way to kind of make things a little bit more open to interpretation. So it's kind of embracing embracing that ambiguity and that vagueness is a really big thing. I mean, some of my very favorite songs in the world are all about embracing that kind of not really telling the whole story, because then it leaves that rest of the story up to your imagination. You know, things uh, like um, who can I mean, it's hard to think of examples on the spot. Like understating. That's something I really like. In terms of something like even don't think twice. It's all right. That's about. I'm pretty sure it's about a marriage ending, and then just like it's okay, and even if you take something that's a really big deal and you just kind of say, okay, and you don't really make that big of a fuss of it, that can still carry just as much emotional gravity as if you were to spend like 20 minutes going on berating the listener about everything you feel. Not to say that going more intensely into an emotional realist kind of thing is bad, but that's personally my kind of way I always think about it. Got a good note from Patrick here I'm going to read. A writer colleague recently gave me some really good feedback on something I sent them and said that leaving room for the reader and listener or / listener to piece things together themselves and not feeling all the details can make a really nice reading or listening experience. People often understand more than you think. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. That's a really good response. Yeah, like that's one thing that's kind of surprised me as well. People understand what you're saying more than you realize sometimes. I've had a lot of songs where I've kind of thought similar things of like, people, do they get what I mean? Like sometimes that being able to communicate, people are smart, they can pick up on what you're saying, and more importantly, they pick up on what you're not saying. So that's what my advice really is think about what you're not saying, and that it can be a difficult thing to do, but I myself, like especially recently, now that I think about it, I find it a lot where I try and catch myself, if I start going too deep into what I'd kind of think of as like like selfish writing. Not selfish in like a derogatory to myself sort of way, like or like being that I'm being overindulgent, but more that I'm thinking purely about myself and my perspective, and sometimes leaving that sort of stuff out. People already know what it feels like to be broken up with, or like to feel lost, or to be out and pass out drunk somewhere and wake up feeling like all hell's broken loose in your brain. Like people have experienced these things. These are lived experiences that you're sharing, so you don't really have to explain every detail about everyone. That's just something that people have in their experience, and that's the beauty of it. You're not necessarily telling someone detail for detail everything. You're just referencing something small, and out of that, this whole this whole bubble in their brain can kind of consider all these things they've already experienced, and that almost makes it more personalized to them as well. Drawing in that library of human emotion, exactly. Like I think that really is the seed of I think I've gone a bit deep in there, but this is something I really like thinking about. Is the role really isn't to explain someone how they should feel or how you feel. It's kind of using these little seeds and these little images and kind of anecdotes and ideas, and piecing them together in a way that evokes different memories and experiences from the person who's listening to it, so that when you listen to it, you have a really personalized response. If you listen to like a really beautiful song that you've enjoyed, and you've kind of like you felt like you're in the song, you feel like in some way you have this really intense personal connection to it, and it's not just like reading what someone else is doing. It feels way more personal than that, and I think that's how that kind of works, is that it evokes that kind of part of your brain that's already felt similar things. Yeah, that's what I'd say about that. Is sometimes thinking about what you're not saying is just as important as what you are saying, which can be very difficult. But at the same time, don't disregard your long rambles and you use the word venting. Yeah, don't disregard your vents as well. Like I definitely prefer like leaving a lot as much as I can out whilst it still makes sense. But at the same time, sometimes those really intense venting songs can be just as beautiful and powerful, and don't disregard that either. And if you do vent a song like that, sometimes it's okay to just say, hey, that's what came out, that's the song, you know, and you don't have to play it to anyone. You know, it's not that it means it's a bad song. If it's too personal, that's okay. I've got songs that I've written and we've even tried playing, and then I've just decided this is too much. It's just mine. I want to keep it to myself, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it's a bad song. It doesn't mean you're bad for writing it. It just means it's something that's more intensely personal. But yeah, so there's multiple ways around that. I've got an example I really want to show, because it's a new song I wrote really recently, and it kind of uses the idea of not overstating things. So and it's also that kind of vagueness about it. And I kind of just want to sing it because it's something I'm still kind of finishing, but I figure this is a cool place to share it. And it's about, so basically I was sitting on my couch, feeling a little bit bad, and I have a fireplace next to in my living room, and I was sitting in front of the fire. And so I literally just picked up the guitar, and the first thing I saw in front of me was the fireplace. And so that's how I started writing the song, saying, you know, staring at a fireplace. And there was, right in front of me, there was a pile of ash and dust on the carpet. And right next to me, there was a big plant, and the curtains were down. And that's this physical setting I was in for writing this song. And not all songs have to be like this, but that for me, I could think of that setting as almost like a representation of how I was feeling at the time. And so without saying anything without once saying I feel bad, or once saying I'm dealing with something, or once saying I'm going to overcome this thing, I feel like I had this whole mental battle in my head I could play out just by talking about the things around me. And so it's like one of the songs recently that I've really actually been excited about lyrically, because it had that kind of aspect to it, which kind of relates back to that whole thinking about what you're not saying. So I might play that real quick if that's okay. I don't want to self-indulge too much, but I'm gonna try it. Is it still? It's called Sitting. It's this one here. This is my song list, by the way, the songs I'm finishing at the moment. Sitting, and that's where I got the name from. Sitting alone in front of a warm open fire, contemplating the nature of life. That's the title of the song. That's another thing. Song titles can be as long as you want, you know, bugger anyone who says otherwise. Oh, actually, you know what I can do as well, whilst I share this? I've actually got the lyrics written out, because I was going to go demo this with my friend today. So I'm going to get the lyrics up whilst I sing it, so you can have a look at that too. Oh, it's the wrong one. Sorry, I just keep sharing the wrong screen. Desktop. I'm just going to share my desktop. All right, there we go. All right. There was a stillness in the air as I stared blankly forward into the embers of a fire, gently clinging on to life before it slowly burns away. And I'm feeling much the same. And there's dust built up on the carpet, making itself a fine little home. Before one day it's all swept up by my tiny wooden broom. But for now the dust is safe, sleeping naked alone, but not afraid. And I wish I could feel the same about the grand irony of life. Oh, but I spend far too much time contemplating all the things I meant to do before I die. Oh, but the plans don't seem to mind. I'll give them water in the morning. I'll even open up the blinds just to remind them of the light gently waiting outside the window frame. And to myself I'll do much the same. So that's still a work in progress, but that kind of talks, that uses the whole trying to kind of, you know, using what you don't say as a way to kind of say more, you know. So that's a new one for me, something I'm still working out. Sorry, let's still get this chat back up. Cool. Cool. Oh yeah. Wait, and actually, I should have left that up. One thing I wanted to say as well is that there's a refrain in this as well. And the refrain here, I'm going to share my screen again. The refrain here, so if you can also see my screen, this is the refrain. Something as small as that can be the refrain. And to me, that is kind of what feels like it really ties it together and it kind of gives it that sense of completeness in my mind. And so for me, like writing that as the last line was kind of like, okay, this is a line I can end on because it becomes the refrain, and that's something I really personally like in a song. So it's just my own decision to be like, you know, I like using refrain, and the fact that this one fits here is a really solid way for me to say, okay, I'm happy with this ending here. Because realistically, I could keep writing like 4 more verses if I want, make it twice as long, and it wouldn't be considered a stupidly long song because it's quite short at the moment. But I kind of like the fact it's short because I think it says everything I wanted to say, and it doesn't overstate it and it doesn't understate it. I think it's, you know, I was like, you know, using like, yeah, not talking too much, but at the same time saying everything. Cool. So that was, that was talking about that. So I'm going to return from that tangent. Back to, so when we're writing a song, I showed you briefly there. I briefly showed you my little thing on my wall here, which is right here. One thing that I would always recommend doing to anyone writing more than one song and trying to finish it, or like work out how to write it, or write more songs, or write better songs, or anything. Keep a list of the songs you're working on. This is something I haven't been doing very much, but I did it. I've been trying to finish a bunch of songs off for a mini album thing we're doing, and it was just freaking me out, and I was getting really stressed about it. And just writing it down, and being able to visualize them all, and write them, you know, as I'm playing them, kind of write them notes and stuff. Huge thing to take that pressure out of my head, and you know, somewhere. So writing a list of songs is a really helpful tool for when you're writing songs, because you sometimes don't want to finish them all in one go, you know, and you don't want to only do one song then another song. Sometimes you might end up having this many songs at the same time. So I've only finished on this one, I've only finished, like, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20. There's like 23 songs in there, and I finished 5 of them. I've kind of finished like 6, 7, 8. Oh no, I finished 6 of them. I finished 7 of them. Oh, I finished 8 of them. And then I've got about like 16 or 15 that I'm kind of like still working on. So it's like, you know, a lot of different things at the same time. That's the way I kind of like doing it. But everyone kind of does that in a way. That's something I'd recommend keeping as like a list. The other thing I would talk about is keeping journals for where you write the songs and having like a specific place, because you know, I know most people always kind of end up writing in a million different spots, like on your notes on your phone, or you might write on your wherever. You might make a pages document. I used to have a really cheap little laptop, but it was like really small. I can't remember. It was like, I don't know. It looked like it was made out of plastic. It was very like 90s kind of like cheapo thing that I got. And I couldn't really use it for anything because it was so slow, but it had like text on it, like the text, like it was just plain text you could do. It was like an application, and I used to always write on there and have them all saved to my laptop. My laptop was just like full of these random text files, no names in any of them. And then my phone was when I got a phone, my notes was full of notes, and I had random bits of paper all over. Like at school, I'd write bits out on my pages, and it kind of went everywhere. And it's great to write everywhere, but you really want, when you're sitting down and you want to get something done, it's good to have books where you're like, this is where they are. So at the moment I've got like, these are my two main ones that I'm doing at the moment. But I've also got, all right, so I've got this one, this one, this one, this one. These are my books. A few of these aren't that full though, but some of it, I mean, work out which one's full. Yeah, so a lot of these are just like these are very old ones from when I was a kid. I don't really remember what's in these ones. Like, they're just kind of random stuff. Yeah, this is clearly written in like year 10 when I was studying Shakespeare. It's called Honest Iago. It's like, and it's good. Like, coming back years later and reading this stuff is crazy. This advice is free, my friend. Take it or leave. I know for sure you'll do just as you please. Your food's been poisoned by doubt. Gathered timbers slowly running out. Everyone's waiting for the clouds. I really thought that love looked just like you. And even heaven's doves fell for the view, but I guess that's just something people do. And so on and so forth. And it's just, yeah. And I got another one of the exact same type of book, but this one has something to start, and that one for the rest of it's pretty much empty. That one, this one's all random crap in it. It's kind of hard to keep track of because you just got like pages and pages of random stuff. The hike, crawling down a dusty road to a place where pain doesn't exist. Watery eyes look up to see fingertips losing touch, preparing for a sprint finish. They see families hiding their eyes. They see herds of dark glasses stumbling across the phobia of the light. Calculators adding up. They see the number of steps, starlight snowing down. I don't know, this is random stuff I remember this from when I was quite young as well. Yeah, so another one. This one I use this one quite a lot. So it's kind of like falling apart a bit. Yeah, that one's kind of come up, but it's all just like it's like random words, so it's hard to keep track of. So it's good to have one that you're working on at a time, because they quickly, they quite quickly build up. You get more and more. This one's just poems. This one, I don't know what's in this one. This one's got some nice drawings in it. Yeah. This one is another one. Oh, this is poems. This is from like when I was 16. This is a lot of like ranty, like teenage angst stuff. I would never really read again, but I just still have it here. I remember someone bought me this book as a gift. I don't think I really draw it much. I did some drawings. but I didn't really do much in that one. Got another one, Drug Aware book. That one's just all, I don't know, it's got a mix of like song lists as well. This one's called The Magic of Folk Music. Oh, I think this is me doing some sort of speech I had to do. Yeah, random stuff. Got another Drug Aware book. This one's not got as much in it. This is my old drama book from when I did drama, but for some reason my drama book ended up turning into like some random poems and things. And then, yeah, and then that takes us up to date to the two ones I'm working on now, which are just kind of like, you know, random like sprawls of different, you know, and writings and stuff. You know, all sorts of things. Yeah, that's the end of where I'm up to so far. But yeah, so basically, these things are your whole life as a writer. I mean, if you do it on a computer, that's cool too. But for me, this is how it kind of works. I find the computer's only something I do when I've like finished it, and I want to be like, this is actually finished. For example, here's like what I was doing at the moment. It's what I was doing like just yesterday. I wrote these up so that I had these written out because I'm going to go do some demos with these tonight. So these are like 4 songs. I'm going to, that was that song I just did then. This is another one. This is another new one. For Another Year Around the Sun. Finished this one last night. I thought it was kind of funny. It's another year around the sun. Hope you had fun. Oh God, it's another year around the sun. Surprise, you turned 21. Another year around the sun. Better get your tax done. It's another year around the sun. You could get married for fun. You can another year around the sun, or you could grab your shit and run. Yeah. So there's lots of different ways to keep track of what we're writing. But the important thing is that we know where it is, because you'll find, once you find books and stuff that you haven't looked at in a long time, you might find all these songs and now you're like, geez, I wish I knew where they were, because I would have loved to sing those, you know, because you'd be surprised how much you can forget if you don't keep track of it. So yeah, that is the song book pile. Just take this back to my little corner over here. Oh. This is where they live. They live in a box. But I'll keep this one on me. These are my 3 main ones. This is my poetry one. This is my 2 song ones. Cool. So that was journal. So keeping a journal is very important. And song lists. And the other thing to mention is like voice memos. Who here? Give me some chat here. Who here uses voice memos? Yeah. Also, that's awesome that you're making a fire at the moment, Rebby. That's really cool. I might do that later. Would you? Yeah, right. Awesome. Yeah, I see. Actually, I've got my phone here. I'll show you. All right, so here's what mine look like at the moment. I'm not sure if that's too hard to see. Sorry. I'll turn my brightness down. Put it up a little. Right, so this is what I've got at the moment. It's just like, oh yeah, there we go. That's a bit easier to see. It's just like buckets and buckets of these, and every one of these is just like a song. Like, so that's the end. So like, I don't know what my most recent one. This is yesterday. Oh, that's that song that I was just playing before. And then, you know, like, yeah, and you know, like, oh, this is me driving and then coming up with a verse, and I wanted to remember it. DJ Dex, when they were younger, I'm sure they probably loved to spin a tune. About DJ Dex, it's meant to be some sort of joke. Yeah, that's another. Yeah, so basically, what I'm trying to say is, you get bucketloads of this sort of stuff, and just anything you come up with, just record it. Yeah, like, yeah, Untitled 74. Yeah. So most of these are I've kind of named I tried to name most of them, and then I kind of recently I got lost, and now they're all called like whatever. Like if I did it at my house, it's got the address of my house, and like it says where you recorded it, so that way you can work it out. But it's kind of can be confusing to remember. I kind of can remember what they are just because I've listened to them. So like I know what Nicholas Crescent 4 is because I've heard it before. Potential, yeah. Oh, nice. That's if you haven't seen Patrick's comment, they said I usually label my voice memos, play one, name of the song, play one, and then next time I go back to it is potential name of the song, play two, like in brackets or whatever the name of the song is. That's a really good way to do it. That's something that I need to improve on because I haven't been naming them as much. But regardless, I think it's really good to have it. And something you shouldn't be worried about as well is putting it on, putting your headphones in, sitting on the train and listening to them. You might feel a bit weird or a bit narcissistic or whatever, but as in who can admit that they've sat in the train or a bus and put their own voice memos on and just listen to it for the sake of, regardless of what reason, but for the sake of analyzing and listening and working out what you think about the song. We've got one, we've got two. Yeah, awesome. All right, so there's two that could forget to listen back. See, that's another thing, listen back. If you go through your voice memos, go to the very bottom, listen to everything, you'll be shocked with all the things you find there. Probably be some things that are shocking purely in the fact of, but there'll be some things that are shocking that will just surprise you in a really good way. And a lot of songs that I've been doing recently, I've just found them from songs I recorded like months and months ago that I just forgot about because I never listened to them again. So it's a really helpful tool. This is literally a gold mine for a writer, is having these sorts of things, because you can come back to this in years' time if you want, if you still have the time, and listen to it, and you just got this endless, bucket load of ideas in things that have inspired you and things that you've been interested in. So yeah, definitely that's a really huge part of writing, in my opinion, which I wanted to talk about. Yeah. Anyhow. So now I've got in brackets the next section of the talk, in brackets the hardest part, and the hardest part. See if any of you tell me if you agree with me. But the hardest part, by which I mean finishing a song. Who has written probably 10 times as many songs as they've finished? So you might have written because I can say I've started writing probably about 40 songs in the past 2 months, and I've probably finished about 2. Yeah, everyone seems. Has anyone not have that problem? Okay, good, because I would be shocked and stunned if anyone hasn't dealt with the issue of how do I actually finish this song. I really think it's just the way it is. It's difficult to finish a song. So the one important thing is never be upset at yourself for not being able to finish a song. It's a very normal thing. It's something we all deal with. But it's also important to understand why you're not finishing the song. And I've thought about that a lot recently. And what I've kind of concluded is, I think I mentioned this briefly at the start, but when you kind of get onto something that you enjoy, or like you start playing something and you go you start singing and you go, oh, I really like this. This is something I'm really liking at the moment. And you write a verse or two and you get really inspired and really you get a bit of adrenaline. Has anyone ever got that when you're writing and you all of a sudden you get this surge of adrenaline and you almost you feel like you're shaky because you're so excited about what you're doing? Yeah, totally right. That's something I think that's something that a lot of artists get, because there's that something incredibly powerful and beautiful about just all of a sudden going, oh my God, I've just made something that I like, it's just almost shocking in a way. Every time it's just oh my God, I can't believe this is going to be the best thing ever. And then you might have that feeling for about 20 minutes. And then inevitably, as a human being, no matter how much we talk about our feelings and emotions in a more deeper and kind of spiritual sense, at the end of the day, we have chemicals running around in our brains. Those chemicals can't keep buzzing forever, and it takes a while to write a song. And if you can't write a song in the amount of time that it takes for that adrenaline and that there's dopamine and whatever to slowly deplete, when that feeling to go away, you will start to doubt it, you start to judge yourself, you start to give up on the song. And that's something I do a lot, and I think a lot of people do. And so you gotta understand it's okay to kind of struggle with a song and hit a point where you're like, oh, I don't know, I really don't want to press forward because I'm worried that it's not going to feel as good as like the first half of the song. Does a lot of people get that, where you feel like you're really excited with the first half and then you just think, you kind of lose hope in a way where you're like, it's almost like depreciating in a way where you're going like, there's no way I can finish this, which is kind of completely illogical in a way, because you wrote the first half of the song. Why wouldn't you be able to write the second half just as good? But it's a feeling that you get. Does anyone agree with me on that? And like that feeling of that surge of excitement just disappearing, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh no, you know? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, right. Yeah, so I mean, this will be different as well for everyone. I find it mostly I write the start and I can't finish it because you have to resolve it. But I mean, some people I think say, is it Sadie or Sadie? Sorry, I don't want to pronounce it wrong. Said just then. Also, writing. Sadie, right? I was Sadie. Yeah, Sadie. Sorry. Oh God, I'm terrible. Writing the beginning and the end and not knowing how to get them together. That's another thing. That's something I don't deal with. Sadie, right? Okay, I was right. Sick. That's something I don't deal with as often. But I mean, like for other people, like someone else, like for yourself, that might be your biggest problem. So everyone's different, you know, in that regard. But really, just forgiving yourself if you do write a bad, you know, you don't like it. Allowing yourself to write something bad is just as important as being focused on writing something good in that sort of situation. So like, for example, last night I was trying to finish a song and I just couldn't do it because I really liked the start. I was like, I'm not going to finish this. And I just kind of sat there and I just forced myself to write something, and I wrote it and I deleted it and I wrote another one, I deleted it, and I just kept writing some stuff for like a couple of hours, and eventually I wrote it and I was like, actually this is cool. And then I sat on it for a minute and now I really like it, you know. And I've been putting that up for like a month probably because I've been scared of, you know, fucking it up. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to write any more of the song because it's just going to be terrible if I ever add anything to it. And it turns out better once you work on it. It's just that fear is always there. But anyway, that's enough of me talking about that first part and all that. But yeah, I want to reiterate the thing I said before, something my housemate mentioned to me the other night that I really just, one of the wisest thing I've ever heard him say, not to say he's a silly person, but he's a bit of a silly person usually. So there's a very good bit of wisdom he said. And he said, one of the most important roles, or one of the most important things for an artist to do is learn to appreciate their own work. And I really seriously agree with that. Not because, you know, the whole point of being an artist is to sit there and think about how great your own work is. Not at all. The point being that in order to create work, you can't create work if you're sitting there constantly doubting it. You need to believe in your own vision. You need to believe in what you're doing. You need to not. And when you have those moments of not believing it, being able to just say, that's okay. Like not allowing yourself to constantly sit there and berate yourself, you know, having that respect to say, it's okay, like not everything that comes out of me has to be gold, you know, having that respect for yourself and learning to, you know, appreciate your own work that you have done is really a huge source of inspiration and it's a really important thing to be able to do and a difficult thing to be able to do. That's something to think about that I want you to take away is, you know, it's really important to be able to, even if you've only ever written one song, even if you don't even like it that much, if you just can sit there and listen to it and go, you know, I'm proud of this, you know, and I want to do more of these sort of things. It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing, and it's something that you can lose at any moment if you don't pay attention to it. You know, you can, like, that's something I've realized. Like in the past, I felt differently about how I did. You know, now, you know, I might felt even better when I was playing songs, only busking them. I might have been busking a song to two people and going like, this is the best song in the world. And then you're playing a gig or recording a song and you've got a much bigger audience and you're thinking, this song's terrible, I hate it. And that's something I've been guilty of a lot recently. It's like you start doubting yourself, and you realize as soon as you do that, you just, attention on what's important just goes out the window, and you start thinking about all these things that aren't important. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you agree with that. Yeah, it's a big thing. That's why when my friend said this last night, like sums it up in that short phrase, was a really big, like, wow, that's a really good way to put it. So I really wanted to get that across, and I'll repeat that again at the end. But anyway, so for me, that was how do we finish the song? It's about forgiving ourselves if it's bad. It's okay if we write terrible songs. I've read so many terrible songs that I'm not even at liberty to share with you, even in an event like this. The other thing I'd say is writing poetry for me is my big, like if I'm struggling to write, I just go on this book and I will just write whatever comes into my head. I'll quickly read an example. This is me trying to clear my brain so I can finish writing something. And some of them end up really good, but I'm going to read a really bad one just to show how silly it can be, and how free you want to be able to clear your thoughts. You really need to be able to just write whatever comes into your head. So, for example, this one is it doesn't have a name, obviously. It's just, this is like the whole book start to finish. It's just one constant thing, but they've got lines in between them sometimes. This one's like the sky is a strange shade of the sky is an awkward shade of purple, and I am ready to get drunk or high or anything that makes an awkward purple sky look like Michelangelo making sweaty love to the Vatican roof. Everyone gathered around, watching, panting, whispering, amen. But fuck church, I am ready to melt into the groggy grey walls that stink of pigeon piss and cigarettes, and talk like a drunk aunt on Christmas after several attempts to mock an Aperol spritz. I can't do the splits. I also have hairy pits. I used to eat meat in school, but not anymore. My dad used to listen to Tool, but not anymore. As I get older, I realize that that's in fact cool. My house doesn't have a stool, just lots of chairs, just lots of couches and rugs, sometimes hugs too. It is nice to write down my thoughts, or tarts, or chocolate cake, scrambled eggs. My nan is not called Fred. This might make me sound like a wacko if read. Please do not read or correct my spelling unless I am dead. You may all gaze upon the grandness of my mundane ability to string together a sentence that makes sense, or pence or dollars or dollary mites. I wish my writing made me money. I wish my writing made me money, but all I have is honey, or whatever that means. And then it just so on. So that makes no sense, right? It's a bunch of random crap. There's a few like lines in there that are kind of interesting that you could probably pull out and use, but overall it's just random stuff. And that's like one of my processes of trying to clear up my brain, so I can just write things without freaking out, constantly overthinking what you're writing, because that's a big thing. Overthinking what you're writing, your room for thinking about whether it's good or bad should be after you've written it, not whilst you're writing it. So that's another thing. You leave the judgment for once you finish the song. So yeah, that's probably the best way to summarize it. Leave the judgment for once you finish the song. Anyway, let's put a bit of practice, eh? How about we write a little song together? I wish I could have got you all together to have a sing and play some instruments with me, but I guess we'll do it this way. And we're just going to do a sort of a throw and take sort of situation. Also, by the way, if anyone has any questions or anything that you want me to answer before we wrap it up, just send them through the Q&A and I'll make sure to get to them before we finish. But we'll dig into this song now. So the way we're going to start off this, usually if we're all together, I would get someone to suggest a chord. So I'm just going to do this via the chat. And does anyone have any chord progression or anything that they've got in their mind? Can anyone say 4 chords, 3 chords, 12 chords? They don't have to be in the right order. Cool, we've got a G, C, C7, we've got a D major. Can you give me a few more chords? A minor. So we've got G, C, C7, D major. Cool. Have we got any? Give me a couple more just for fun. All right, I'm gonna, someone give me a number. 7, all right, something less than 4, something less than 5, like the smaller number. That's 3, okay, because I was gonna pick the number of what chords. So you picked, oh, actually no, it's 2, all right. That C, C13 F sharp thing you did before. Okay, I'll include that. I'll include that chord, and then I'll use all those other chords too. So we'll start with that D major and the A minor. So whether you know a lot of guitar theory, or instrument theory, whatever instrument you're writing on, I often write a lot on piano and stuff over here. So you can see over here, I've got my piano, and then I've got my organ there as well. I've got my guitar, and then over behind me, I've got my banjo and my another little guitar, and I've got a ukulele down there. I've got another ukulele. Just kind of build them up over time. So I usually write on all sorts of different instruments, but today we'll use the guitar. And you can really write on anything. You don't have to know more than 2 chords to do it, but I'm just going to play guitar for now. But if you know more about theory, we can kind of think a little bit beforehand. Like, for example, if we had that A minor and the D, we know, like, we start in the D. Now we're doing something Mixolydian, which kind of already gives us an idea of how it's going to sound. So we'll base it off that. We'll go on the D with the A minor. Oh yeah, so do we want to do 4/4 or 6/8? Someone say 6 or 4? 6/8. All right, we'll do 6. Oh, by the way, the difference between 4/4 and 6/8, I'll quickly explain. Even though I don't want this to be a theory, but I'll do it because I love this sort of stuff anyway. 6/8 is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's a 6/8, and then a 4/4 just means 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll do 6/8. I love 6/8, so let's do that. All right. If you just name chords, that's what we go. We'll go A minor. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Yeah, right. So we won't use that chord in that part there because that doesn't really work. So we'll just use that D, A minor, G thing. I think that works. Oh, C. Yeah, so we'll do that, hey. And B major. All right, so we've got a bunch of chords to play with now. So we need to figure out our very first melody. I think we'll start off with a simple one, and then we can use those chords later on to mix it up. So rather than just repeating the same thing. So we'll start off with a D, A minor, C. All right, so we've got a chord progression there. We've got D, A minor, C, G. Now we need a melody. And this one would be easier with all still together, but can someone say, basically we have multiple choices to where to start. We could go like, la, la, la. Do we want to start off loud or quiet, or what do we want to do? We'll work that out once we get the idea of the song. Basically, what I want you to do now is spam me with as many like ideas as you can. So plants or floorboards or love or fear or driving a car or another thing that's really great. Actually, hold that. Peeling paint. Excellent, Taylor. You read my mind. I was going to say, read your physical surroundings, not only your physical emotions, but also things that that's honestly, I think over the years, I've just figured that's my favorite thing in the world, to start writing a song, look in front of me and go, right now I'd say, oh, I'm next to a window. I'd be like, the window's gone down, the lights shining on, something like that. I don't know. So let's pick the first one. Taylor, he said peeling paint. We got endless rain, the storm, asking your friends what they want, and the Macca's drive-through. I like that. cold but not wanting to get up to get a jumper. All right, let's see if we can find those all together. Eh? I might let me get up a little document real quick. All right, so we'll add a page. Oh wait, wait. We get a new. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just gonna open a new Pages document. Usually I wouldn't write a song on Pages, but let's do it on Pages because then we can all see the song together. All right. All right, so you all got my page there. Now I've got to get the chat box up. How do I do that? Oh no, sorry, I've got to stop this and get the chat. Oh, here we go, chat, Q&A. All right, then we go share screen, desktop. All right, here we go. Oh, dang it. All right. Okay, there we go. Now I can see the chat. All right, that's it. Cool. All right, so let's start up. We got so those chords. We had a D, A minor, and we had a G. All right, so that can be how we can start off. Now we got to figure out what we want in terms of melody, you know. So we'll think over the idea first. So we'll start with a peeling paint. Yeah, we'll start with peeling paint because I like that as an idea. So we can quite literally just start by saying peeling paint if we want. Make sure people select color. We can oh yeah, cool. That's very good advice. Paint slowly peeling off a damp old wall. How about that? Paint slowly peeling off my, what room are we in? Bedroom, living room? Where? Tell me, first person to tell me where they're sitting can be the location. Kitchen. All right, we're in the kitchen. Too late, Taylor. We're in the kitchen. Paint slowly peeling off my kitchen wall. And then we think of something that rhymes. The first thing that came into my mind was I'm slowly healing. I'm slowly healing. And I've changed my mind. I don't like that. I feel like telling them that I'm slowly healing is too self-indulgent. I'm telling them beforehand. The storm for the storm. Downpour. Okay, I like downpour. Children are squealing. That sounds like a horror one. All right, so paint slowly peeling off of my kitchen wall. The rain's on my roof. Says, rain on my roof. Rain on my roof. Rain on my roof. Rain's pounding on the roof. And what's going to happen to the roof? Is it going to fall? Is it going to? It has to rhyme. Has to rhyme. So let me write that down. Paint. The paint slowly peeling off of my kitchen wall. Rain on the roof, mate. Rain on the roof. Rain on the roof. Big old storm. Tin roof static. Rain on the window. I'm gonna say a big old storm because why not? Big old storm. Big old storm. Paint slowly peeling on my kitchen wall. Rain on the roof. Paint slowly peeling on my kitchen wall. Rain on the roof. Rain on the roof. So I'm going to change it to a G. Oh yeah, it is G. A rain on my roof, a big old storm. All right, so now we're going to repeat this a few times, as many times as we want. So let's do like a couple. So rain on my roof, a big old storm. All right, so we got the setting. We know where we are. And now we got, like there's a bit of tension there already because we're like, oh, okay, you know, there's a storm happening. Usually when there's a storm, paint peeling, the environment kind of is a reflection of how we're feeling, right? So the paint peeling on the walls kind of saying, you know, I'm feeling a bit exposed. Rain on the roof makes you feel a little bit vulnerable, but at the same time, a little bit safe because you've got a roof over your head. So that all these different things are creating like all these ideas already, even though we've just said paint peeling, kitchen wall, rain on the roof, big ass storm. That already says, you know, you're feeling a bit vulnerable. You're feeling a bit exposed, but you're feeling a bit vulnerable and exposed, really, but you've got that sort of safety net there, at least at the moment. In big old storm though, maybe the safety net's about to go, maybe a roof's about to break in. Pot on the stove, I like that. Referencing the food. I haven't talked all about food yet. The last, God, I realized I haven't mentioned food. I don't think I have to though. The whole point of food is kind of like a screw you to the mentality that all songs are meant to be serious and discernible. If you can write a song about sandwich, one of the songs I'm trying to finish is scrambled eggs. It's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to talk about food, but regardless, pot on the stove, that's great. So we got the paint is slowly peeling on my kitchen wall, rain on my roof looks like a big old storm. Sounds like a big old storm. All my friends, right, I like that, a bit of a positive twist. All my friend sat around me, right? There's a pot on the stove. Pot. Sorry, that's not what I'm about to say. Pot on the stove. Pot on the stove. My friends sat around me. Boiling pot on the stove. Oh, and another thing to see here, who cares about grammar? Realistically, the least words you can use, generally the better, unless you're using extra words to kind of give the effect of maybe saying quite likely, probably, to some extent, extending something out for no other reason than extending it, because sort of, in a way, sometimes that can kind of be interesting like that, you know what I mean? So apart from situations like that, we want to use as little words as possible when we can. Making some pasta. Okay, all right. Let's get some Angie McMahon up in here. All my friends sat around me, boiling pot on the stove. Smell of pasta is in the air. All right. All my friends sat around me, boiling pot on the stove. Boiling pot on the stove. Boiling pot on the stove. Pot on the stove. Sat around, boiling pot on the stove. Lights are quite dim. Great, lights are quite light. The lights are all the lights. Oh, what about the lights? The lights are just the lights. Oh, right. Oh no, I've got this. So the lights have just blown because of the storm. Boiling pot on the stove. Flickering candles, candle light. Fuse is blown. Fuse is just blown. Bit of. Sorry, you're making this all really nice, and I'm starting to try and bring back a bit of fear into the air. Flickering candlelight. The fuse is just blown. Lightning box around me. Nah. Lightning. Nah, we're not gonna do lightning unless you want to do lightning. All right. Yeah, leaks to the doors. Does anyone have a stovetop where there's a chimney, and then every time there's a storm, the stovetop just gets fucked with like stuff coming in the chimney? Yeah. All right. My friends sat around me, boiling pot on the stove, flickering candlelight. And the fuse is just blown. All right, let's throw in that. Someone said a B major before, right? Yeah, they definitely did. Yeah, Vincent said B major. We're going to use a B. We're going to go to B major here. We're going to have to barchord that, which is something I don't do very often, but I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you, Vincent. All right, so, and that'll throw a twist on things, but we'll work with it. It's not necessarily right or wrong, although essentially B isn't in the scale that we're playing, but that's what's kind of cool about it. We go, paint slowly peeling off my kitchen wall, the rain on the roof sounds like a big old storm. All my friends sat around me, boiling pot on the stove, and faces flickering in the candlelight after the fuses faces see, as we play through it every time, we can kind of like change things. Seems a fuse is just blown. As the fuse is just blown. Yeah, the thing is, I think as the fuse is just blown, that's something I would always avoid, is like being too obvious, saying, ever saying because. That's something of my own experience that I've kind of learned, is saying the word because or as ends up leading you down a bit of a hole of, I think what Sadie was saying before, of kind of over explaining yourself. So I'm going to avoid that one for that reason. But I mean, by all means, you can do that. That's just my own personal preference. So we go, all my friends sat around me, a boiling pot on the stove, faces flickering in the candlelight, the fuse is just blown. Or like, to be honest, because I like that line. Let's say the fuse is just blown, because I think that's there's no real reason to say as. We can say the fuse is just blown, like cut that word out and then leave the rest. That works. The fuse is just blown. And then we got this chord. Whoa. How does that chord make you feel when you go? Yeah, okay, I like that. I like going straight to B. We can go to E minor as well. We can do whatever we want there. Let's just go straight to B for now, and we can maybe. All my friends sat around me, boiling pot on the stove. Yeah, faces flickering in the candlelight. The fuse is just blown, and the thunder and lightning. Yeah, bloody yes. That's the feeling you get when you're like, this is good. Thunder and lightning. Oh, I'm gonna do this in capitals. Thunder and lightning. Lightning. And it's a long process to write a song, but like this, look how quick this is. We're already halfway through a song. Thunder and lightning. So thunder and lightning. And the reason I came up with that note was purely because that it's just a B. We're playing a B chord. I sing a B note. That's, we could sing a instead of a B, we could sing an F sharp, or we could sing a B. Oh wait, yeah, instead of a B. But let's just say B. All right, so we're like, fuse is just burning, thunder and lightning, thunder and lightning. Oh, I forgot how I did it. So, all my friends sat around me, boiling a pot on the stove, faces flickering in the candlelight, the fuse is just blown, thunder and lightning. Oh, that makes me want to go to a C. Yeah, so we go to a C from there because that's a major third, and we know that chord. Yeah, right. Thunder and lightning, flickering in the air. Ah, yes. Right, so we go flickering in the air, kind of keeping this vibe still going, Flickering in the, sorry, that wasn't meant to be caps. We'll leave it like that though. All right, so there's a. Let's go and say, all right, so do we all know the difference between first person, second person, and third person? Can you use a chat to say if anyone, I can talk about the difference briefly. Have we all heard about second person and third person and first person? I'll quickly say them, because, all right, awesome. Because why I was saying that is because something I've been really interested in recently is writing in second person. And second person is something I'd heard, and it's very simple, but I've never really thought about it before. I never really put it into a concept before. When I was a kid, not until I finished school, I kind of, throughout school, I remember never really talking about or hearing about second person. But second person is essentially saying you. So first person, we're saying, I did this. I heard a crash outside. That's first person. Third person, we're saying they heard a crash outside. And second person is really interesting because we're saying you heard a crash outside. And the reason I really like second person is it puts the listener quite directly in the shoes of the person. Yeah, totally. And a lot of, so that's something a lot of people do, is writing in second person, saying you, and they're actually talking in third person to themselves. But by talking to themselves in that way, it kind of is directed more at the listener. And it's something I really like, and it makes things a lot more like, I think it makes them a lot more visceral for the listener. So let's jump to, let's change it to second person. Sit around, let your friends sit around. Sit around, yeah. And figuring you hear crash outside, crash outside. All right, so we hear a crash outside. Piece of house escapeway. Oh, what's the crash outside? A car or thunder and light, flicker in the air. You hear a crash outside. Maybe it's a bear. Maybe it's a bear. Haha, I like that. Maybe it's a bear. We're gonna use that. I like that. Or just an aeroplane crashing directly into my roof. But the bang brings. And if we're in first person, no shaky work, we could say the brain brings you fear and makes him think of you, you know. Oh well. Branch on my roof, tree fell. I like that. Maybe it's a bear. Youth. So it's an air, thunder and lightning, crash into the air. You crash outside. Crash outside. Maybe it's a bear, or just an airplane crashing directly in your roof. Directly on your roof. Yeah, on your roof. You're right. Directly on your roof. On your roof. Right. Directly on your roof. Okay, there we go. So we got like a nice little thing. Thunder and lightning, flicker in the air. You hear a crash outside. Maybe it's a bear, or just an airplane, crashing directly on the youth. You scurry under a table. Friends sitting next to you. Your friends sitting next to you. All right. Now let's go back to this verse thing, eh? And then we can wrap it up and can do one more of these down here. And it's just it's that easy, you know. Oh, thunder. C. We don't need the major thing. Just write B, C. Yes. So we can go C minor, major, 13. Over F sharp. All right. Let's do it. That's one of my favorite chords. It's so over the top. 3. All right. So there we go. So there we got the that's the chorus. We copy this. Pop that one in there. Now we just need another verse, and then we're set, and we got a whole song. All right. So your friend's sitting next to you under the table now. So now perhaps, you know, you're close together. You're brought physically closer within the song. We're being brought physically close together by this storm. So maybe there's something. Maybe there's a bit of a love interest there, you know, or maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's about their representation of yourself, and you're trying to connect with your different parts of the things you're feeling, you know. So throw out some lines. Don't just throw out random things, and we'll pick good stuff. That's kind of the whole point. We'll just say as much as you can, and we'll pick out little bits that we can fit in. That's kind of how it works, you know. Like just doing this on your own, though, you just kind of got to say as many things as you can come up with. Cold, but I feel warm. I like that. So I'm just going to go from this. Like thunder and lightning, flickering in the air. You crash outside. Maybe it's a bear, or just an airplane crashing directly on your roof. You scurry under a table, your friends sitting next to you. laughing about little things. Contrast, juxtaposition, storms versus your friends having a polite conversation. Isn't that nice? All right. I had to easy, yeah. I'll record the very final one. Oh yeah, it's live streamed. Okay, you'll be able to see it on Facebook later. That's daunting. I didn't realize that. Oh, all right. So laughing about little things. We've got a bit of contrast there. Laughing about the little things. Oh, sitting next to you, laughing about the little things that you and what you laughing about the little things and what you ate last night. It's coming up today, and it ain't polite. A fart joke. Is it? Laughing about little things and what you ate last night. It's come back up, and it ain't. Right, there we go. Now we've got a fart joke in the song. That's great. All right. Okay. All right. We got a friends interacting. We've got a friends interacting here. What are they saying to each other? Give me some ideas here. We're sitting under a table with our mates. What happened? Pick objects from around you for inspiration if you can't think of things. Pasta boils over the stove. Excellent. All right. So laughing about little things and what you ate last night. It's coming back up, and it ain't polite. Meanwhile, the pasta's boiling to the brim. By the pot. Meanwhile, the pasta's boiling, spilling all over the stove. Meanwhile, pasta's boiling, spilling over the stove. Yeah, right. Meanwhile, pasta's boiling, crows, spilling over the stove. All right, we're at this point in the song now where we want to find the kind of theme or like the things, like when we write it, we just kind of go wildly into it. We don't really decide what are we writing until we finish it, you know? So now that we've kind of got this far where this is kind of a pretty pinnacle part of it, we can kind of think, instead of just thinking what rhymes with this line, we can start to think what's relevant to the rest of the song, you know? So we think, paint slowly peeling on the kitchen wall, rain on the roof, sounds like a big old storm. All your friends sat around you, boiling pot on the stove, face the flickering, the candlelight, fuse is just blown. Thunder and lightning, flickering in the air, you hear a crash outside, maybe it's a bear, an airplane crashing directly in the roof, you're scaring the table, your friends sitting next to you, laughing about little things, and what you ate last night, it's come back up and ain't polite. And while the portion's boiling, spilling over the stove, but you're not hungry anymore. You're ready. Yeah, totally. Bad situations, good people with you. Throwing the light and freaking you, you hear a crash outside, maybe it's a bear, it's an airplane crashing directly on your roof, you're scaring to the table, your friends sitting next to you. Right, so yeah, so it seems to be kind of about, yeah, the paint just sits there hanging off the wall, I like that. Meanwhile, the past is boiling, the film over the stove, paint on the wall, still peeling. Paint on the wall. Paint on the wall. Yeah, paint on the wall. Wall is still peeling. And while the past is boiling, spilling over the stove, the paint on the wall is peeling. Oh, the paint on the wall is starting to look like, I reckon it's just paint on the wall still peeling, because sometimes having something stupid like that is like, well, sometimes little things in life that are kind of strange, they exist and they don't change, and it's cool just to accept them and acknowledge them. So paint on the wall still peeling is just an idea of us acknowledging the fact that there's this paint on the wall that's peeling. There's not really any reason for us to bring attention to it other than the fact it just exists, and that's cool, you know. So paint on the wall is still peeling. Paint on the wall is still peeling. The fuse is still blown. Fuse is still blown. Things are just the way they are they not? Why does it have to change? Not every line has to be a revelation or something new happening. Sometimes you can just be reiterating the fact that things are the way they are. So we got, and the fuse is still blown, right? There we go. So this is our first draft. So we go here, draft 1. What do we want to call it? We call it, one day you patch the leaks in your little house, clean up the stove. I love that. Can I copy the text from here? Yes. All right, draft 1. I don't think you suggested, I'm not sure if you suggested this as a title, but I love it as a name. So let's use that as a name. This song's going to be called One Day You'll Patch Up the Leaks in Your Little Old House, Clean Up the Stove. Paint slowly peeling. Yeah. Oh. You're always scared to reuse lyrics. I'm scared to not reuse lyrics. Reusing lyrics is powerful. It creates a sense of like wholeness sometimes. Like you got to be careful about what you do reuse, but have a reason. Have a reason to reuse them. You know, like yeah. And sometimes, you know, yeah, repeat the good bits. But I mean, I'm repeating the bit about the paint on the wall. Like, what does that mean? Nothing really. But I mean, I'm sure if you made that into a good song, then people would say, wow, like this metaphor of the paint on the wall is really powerful, you know. It's all just made up, you know. It really just matters how it affects you emotionally. I think paint filling the wall has this really beautiful kind of image to it. And I don't think it's not like it's representative of my skin, like filling raw. Like it is, you know, I could say that, but at the end of the day, it's just paint filling in the wall. It is what you make of it. I just think it's an interesting image that people can interpret in any way they need to, or they feel like it's relevant to them. So that's why I think that's a good thing to use, not because it means something specific, but because it means nothing at all, essentially. And that's kind of what I was trying to say before. By saying less, you can say more, you know, by saying paint on the wall. That can be a million different things. Where if I said, I'm feeling vulnerable, that means one thing and one thing only, you know. So that's my kind of thinking behind it. But I mean, this is just my kind of idea. Like, you don't have to take this as a gospel. Like, this is just the way I think about it. So anyway, so here we go. This is a song. So I'm just going to give it a crack through just to work it out a little bit more. So we got the paint slowly peeling on my kitchen wall. Rain on my roof. Sounds like there's a big old storm. All your friends are sat around. Oh, rain on the roof. Sounds like a friends are sat around you. Boiling pot on the stove. Faces flickering in the candlelight. Fuse are just blown. Thunder and lightning. Flickering in the air. Hear it crash outside. Maybe it's a bear. Just an airplane crashing directly on your roof. Scurry on the table. Friends sitting next to you, laughing about the little things. And one day, ate last night, coming back up, and it ain't polite. Meanwhile, the past is boiling, spilling over the stove. Paint on the walls peeling, and the fuse is still growing. Yeah, okay. So my thing I'd say is that this verse is need to get the melody a little bit more worked out, the melody a little bit more, and also if we think about what we want the can I draw? Is there like a drawing thing on here? I don't know if there's a drawing thing, but oh yeah, no, there's not. Lay out more. Oh, I don't know, there is. Oh well. Yeah, okay. So oh well. Who's doing that? Someone just drew on my page. That's absolutely wild. Yeah, so basically what I was thinking about here is these are going to be the choruses, and I want them to be big like that, and these are going to be the small bits. So what I'm thinking is that we have the start here and the end here. Kind of want this first verse to be like slow, and build up a little, and then thunder and lightning crash into the air. Is bare, and then comes back down, and then comes back up. And that's going to be the kind of how the song's going to go. All right, so that's that sort of structure we want. All right, how do we get back to this? Cool. All right, so we want to get this melody finished off. And once we finish the kind of melody for this, then this is enough for now. Like obviously we could work on the song a lot more, but we've written this in like 20 minutes. And it's still a cool kind of idea or start of a song. So paint slowly peeling, paint slowly peeling. What I don't like is how it keeps descending. So I'm thinking maybe I'll like try and keep it staying in the same spot. Slowly peeling in your bathroom wall. Sound rain on the roof. Sounds like a big old storm. Friends sat around you, warm and hot on the stove. Faces are flickering and fuses just burning. Thundering like flickering in the air. Hearing a crash outside. Maybe it's a bear or just an aeroplane crashing directly on your roof. You scurry under a table, having friends sit next to you, laughing about the good things and what you ate last night. It's coming back up, and it ain't the light. Cool. All right. So, even though this probably isn't the best song we've ever written, I think it's cool though. I really like this chorus, right? And what we can do, if we don't like the rest, we can change these chords. You know, we can say maybe it'll work better if we do maybe a D and then a C and then on my kitchen wall. Seems like a big old storm. Friends are sat around you. All right, I'm going to change this to a D and a C because I don't like those chords as much. Right? You see how, yeah. Cool, so that's how we can kind of, so now that we've written the song, now we've got the process of finishing it, and finishing it is kind of like taking the drafts and kind of just improving it. So, paint slowly peeling on my kitchen wall, rain on the roof, sounds like a big old storm, rain moving around you, falling hot on the stove, hot on the stove, faces flickering in the candlelight, keys are just playing. Thunder and lightning, it's flickering in the air. You hear a crash outside, maybe it's a bear. Crash outside, maybe it's a bear, or just an airplane crashing directly on your roof. Scurry under a table with friends sitting next to you. You're laughing about the little things and what you ate last night. Cool. All right. So I think we need a bit of a gap here. So what I would do is I would repeat with harmonica. There we go. And you know what? I would straight up just say, there we go, that's done. And then, and you realize one thing is like, it's the difference between writing a song and then learning to play the song. So then the next step would be learning to play it, because obviously I can't play it very well yet. You know, it's always interesting transcribing to different instruments. So one thing we can do is like taking this and then chucking it on a piano and seeing how that works, you know, so I can get this stay in the same spot. If I want to like flick this around, and we're just to come over here and go like D and C. We got a what? So we got a D. We want like a nice C shape, like a. Yeah, right. Paint slowly peeling over here actually. So if we were to do this, then we got like, and slowly peeling on the kitchen wall, rain on the roof, sounds like a big old storm. All your friends are sat around you, boiling pot on the stove, faces flickering in the candlelight, the fuse is just blown. Ah, right, so this bit here, we're going to do an F. Faces flickering in the candlelight, and the fuse is just blown. And then we go to the B. Thunder and lightning, flickering in the air. You hear a crash outside, maybe it's a bear. Or an aeroplane crashing directly in your roof. You scurry under a table and your friends sitting with you, laughing about the little things and what you ate last night. Coming back up and right, okay, I like those chords better. And I like them on piano, but I don't think piano is the final product here. I think maybe picking is even a better final product. But I want to wrap this up quickly, so it doesn't drag on for too long for you lot. But I'm hoping what this represents, rather than us creating a masterpiece, we're not aiming to create a masterpiece, we're aiming to create a song, and that's it. So if we could even try and pick in this, and just a simple picking pattern could be. Paint slowly peeling on the kitchen wall. Oh yeah, it's 4/4 now, sorry. Oh, that's probably why it was peeling on the kitchen wall. Rain on the roof sounds like a big old storm. All your friends are sat around you, boiling a pot on the stove. Faces in the candlelight and the fuse is just blown. Thunder and lightning, it's flickering in the air. You hear a crash outside. Maybe it's a bear or just an aeroplane crashing directly on your roof. You scurry under a table and your friends sit next to you, laughing about the little things that what you ate last night. Alright, okay, I like that. So one thing we need to be aware of is like how we're playing it. So for this bit, I'm going to play it a lot louder and a bit like, you know, more intensely. In this bit, we want to kind of slow the tempo down and play it a bit softer. And that's how we get that differentiation. And I would do a thing with harmonica. I don't have my harmonica on me, it's in my kitchen, so I'm not going to get it, but I would if I was otherwise. So what I'm going to, yeah, so now what I would do is I would practice it for a few days and just play it. And as you play it, you realize that you're going to, like, you see how even now we're changing a couple words and chords as we go. So keep practicing it as a way to kind of, like, that's the thing. That's why it's hard to finish, because we don't really have an end point. Like, as you keep playing, it's kind of like keeps growing and changing. The end point really is, for me, it's usually just recording it. But some songs you never record. So it's good just to be able to say, this is like enough. If it changes, that's cool. But for me, this is like, that's a song. And I say, this is a song. So what I might do quickly, let's just do this quickly. Let's just record it really quick. Even if it's a really bad version, I'll record it because then you can all have it. All right, this is something old. I'll exit that, open a new one. There we go. Get input 1. Stand back. Right. All right, we've got to make sure we show the output track so that I can click on there and I don't get feedback. And now I've got this microphone hopefully running through it. Oh, I just realized that might have been really, really quiet. I'm sorry. Hopefully that's louder again. All right, so if I click record on here, right, we're just going to give this a wild shot and see how it goes. Oh, actually, wait, it's not working. Oh, that's weird. What do you want? That? Oh, it is working. Cool. All right. So now we need to get to the words. The words are here. All right. I'm just going to play it nice and slow so we can remember, so I can play it properly. Paint slowly peeling on your kitchen wall. The rain on the roof sounds like a big old storm, and all your friends are sat around you, watching the boiling pot on the stove. Faces flickering a candlelight and the fuse is just blown. Thunder and lightning are flickering in the air. You hear a crash outside, or maybe it's a bear, or just a aeroplane crashing directly on your roof. You scurry under a table and your friends sit next to you. Laughing about the little things and what you ate last night. It's coming back up and it sure ain't polite. Meanwhile the past is boiling, spilling over the stove. Paint on the wall is still peeling and the fuse is still blowing. And thunder and lightning still flickering in the air. You hear a crash outside, maybe it's a bear, or just an aeroplane crashing directly on your roof. You scurry under a table as your friends sit next to you. I don't know what an ending that is, but that's the ending we're going to go with. There we go. Bam. There we got the song. All right. So here we go. We wrote a song and we recorded it, and we said that song is done now. I'm going to quickly answer this question, and then I'm going to wrap that up. And then maybe I'll finish the song off and I'll put it up somewhere, and you guys can have a listen to the song that we made together. The last question I have to answer though is from Vincent. Do you have any tips for starting a band / finding people to collaborate with, especially at the moment when going out and meeting people is so hard? That's definitely a difficult one, considering coronavirus. I wouldn't have any tips for in terms of meeting new people, it's definitely a little bit difficult. In my kind of at the moment, I've got a lot of friends who already play music, and then so they obviously have friends who play music too, and then we kind of have jams, and that's how we kind of meet. I'm meeting a lot of new friends who play music. Yeah, that's a really difficult one. I'd say usually I would say go to gigs, meet people at gigs, make friends, and ask to jam with people. And literally, people love jamming. Like if you ask people to have a jam, they can do it. At the moment, now that there's no gigs, I reckon the best thing probably to do is find literally anyone you know who already does play music, and ask them to have a jam. Then just do it for fun. Just do it for fun, and don't think about it too much. Just if you can find friends who you can sit down with and just play some songs with, that's really where it all starts, and enjoying it. But yeah, that is tough. I know that's a really tough thing at the moment. Maybe that's something that needs to happen. I don't know. It's pretty hard in this day and age when we've got all of that. I don't know. I'm sorry. I wish I had a better answer to your question. All I'd say is do you know? But you can still be a part of online communities. I mean, I'd say a few good ones would be there's a Perth music group on. I've got to make sure actually it's muted. There's a Perth music group on Facebook. Go on those Facebook groups. There's heaps of Facebook groups dedicated to Perth music, especially under 18 live music scene. I'm not sure how old you are. If you're over 18, like myself, then there's heaps of other ones as well. But their under 18 was really good for under 18 people as well, because everyone's kind of the same. Jack, yeah, you have a jam. Have a jam. You should chat on here. Just find people. Yeah, it's all a social thing. the meme pages about local music. You'd be surprised how many people you get to know on there. Go check that out. Check out, yeah, there's heaps of them. Anyway, but I wish I had a better answer. I'm sorry. But yeah, keep up there. So I know it can be hard. But I've given my heart out to you. Anyway, Taylor as well. Would you be up to doing in-person group sing-songwriting lessons once restriction ends? Heck yes, I would. I would absolutely love that. Everyone wants to jam. Slide into Vincent Goodwin's DMs. What's your Instagram, Vincent? You put it on there. You should jam with Jack Clausen. Anyway, yeah, I would love to do an in-person group sing-songwriting lesson. That'd be awesome. That's what this was meant to be. It was going to be at the Maritime Museum, but because of the coronavirus, it was a bit impractical. And anyway, yeah, I would love to. If people are particularly keen for that, send messages through to Propel, send messages through to myself. It'll happen. We'll make it happen. And one more question from Patrick. What are your tips for navigating writing stuff you need to write and then deciding what you do and don't share with the world, particularly when writing about personal or sad things or things about other people in your life? Yeah, that is a difficult one. Really, there's no set guide for that. I mean, everyone has their own kind of relationship with what they're willing to share. I think it's important to understand the power that you have by sharing those stories, even if they are uncomfortable to share. People recognize that and really connect through it. And sometimes you do need to make that sacrifice by saying, this might be uncomfortable for me to do it, and it might even upset people if I'm maybe saying things that they might not like, or they might think it's about them when it's not, or maybe they might think it's about them and it is. And it's obviously about them. Stuff like that. Just sometimes it's worth it. Think about your career versus your kind of what's the word for it? Your career as an artist versus your kind of, what's the word, surface level relationships with certain people. I mean, it's hard when it's a really deeper thing, especially writing about your family and things. But yeah, deciding where that line is for you. I've experimented that definitely in the past by pushing it out and seeing how comfortable I am with sharing more personal stuff, and I think I found my line. Yeah, definitely still working it out myself. But it's really whatever's up to you. I think experimenting is fine, doing an open mic, or just giving your work to friends to read and just seeing how it makes you feel and how they respond to it, and you might see where is it worth it or not. But that's something for you to work out yourself, really. But I think it's always I think you should always push yourself to try and test that boundary. But I mean, really stay. Yeah, it's a hard question. I'm essentially saying stay within your comfort zone, but also don't stay within your comfort zone. You have every right to do either. But I think it's worth pushing it because some beautiful pieces of work are incredibly intense and would have been difficult to perform for the first time, but the world is very thankful that they exist. So I hope that helps a little bit. All right. And I think I might wrap it up there. I would do some more to this song, but I think a bit over time now, so I'm just going to finish that. I need to go off, and I'm going to go do some demoing now on a couple of these songs I was talking about before. How do I get back to? Sorry, I'm trying to get back to the Zoom call now. I'm stuck. All right, here we go. Oh, I'm back. Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap it up now. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll quickly reiterate what I went over. But yeah, I talked a little bit about the form, about the melody and the lyrics. We talked about how we start writing a song, how we finish writing a song, the sort of blocks that we get doing that. And yeah, and I talked about a few questions and my own experiences. And yeah, and I hope there's something you can take away from that. I definitely don't feel like I'm a master at any point of any of this sort of stuff, but it's something I spend a great deal of time thinking about and trying to do. So I'm glad you would join me today and had a listen, and hope it really helped a little bit. And have a good rest of your week writing some songs. If you haven't written a song in a while, I suggest you start one tonight or right now when this finishes. I'm take a sip of my water bottle, and then I'm going to go. Oh, and a huge thank you. I have to say a big thank you to Propel Youth Arts. They're the only, like, I was meant to do this workshop in April, and I don't know if I should disclose sort of stuff, but because that got cancelled, but I can't think of another place that would actually still pay the artists after cancelling their event, and then reschedule it. And then like, I really respect the way Propel went around that, and I'm very thankful for that. It helped me a lot. So huge shout out to Propel for by far being the coolest organization around dealing with this sort of stuff. Absolute legends, and they're doing a great job with this week. And very thankful that they're so supportive of all the creatives in WA, and I'm sure they will continue to be so in the future. So yeah, I can't wait to see next year's in real life festival, hopefully. Right, catch you later, everyone.